We're only a few weeks away from the release of The Ninth Jedi, an upcoming animated series from Production I.G that continues the incredible story from the Star Wars Vision shorts The Ninth Jedi and The Ninth Jedi Child of Hope. Now if you haven't seen these two shorts yet, first of all, what are you doing? Go and watch them. But second of all, if you've missed them, then you've missed out on some of the coolest lightsabers in modern Star Wars. We're talking blades that can extend their length at will and dynamically change colour based on whoever picks them up. Rewatching The Ninth Jedi in preparation for the new series got me thinking, when else have we seen lightsabers that change colour in Star Wars? Short of a Jedi physically swapping out their Kyber crystal for a new one, how does a Force user actually go about changing their blade colour? And how many of you know about the iconic Jedi Master who changed his lightsaber colour on the fly? And that's in a movie you've probably watched dozens of times. Before we jump into all that, let's cover some quick basics. A lightsaber gets its colour from its Kyber crystal. These crystals are rare, Force-attuned gems that are found in select spots across the galaxy, like the frozen planet of Ilum, which was frequented by generations of Jedi younglings building their very first sabers. Kyber crystals start out completely colourless, but once they're chosen by a Jedi, they attune to their wielder and take on a colour that best represents the Jedi's nature. Most of them turn green or blue, but we've seen rare exceptions like Mace Windu's purple blade, Rey's yellow saber, or Baylan Skoll's orange weapon. Importantly, Kyber crystals are inherently aligned with the light side of the Force. A dark side user can't just pick up a crystal and expect it to automatically turn red, though we'll get into how they actually made that happen in a minute. The key takeaway for now is that in canon, a Kyber crystal determines its colour based on the wielder who it is initially attuned to. The Ninth Jedi, of course, completely flips this on its head. Here, the crystal constantly adapts to whoever holds the hilt. That's why in the original Vision short, we see the blades instantly snap to crimson the second a Sith takes hold of them. Instead of reflecting the person who originally forged the weapon, the sabers in the Ninth Jedi reflect the soul of whoever is holding them right now. So what other cases of colour changing sabers do we actually have in both canon and Legends? Well, if you've seen The Acolyte, and to be honest I generally hope for your sake that you haven't put yourself through that pain, you'll remember the scene at the end of the series where Osha turns her lightsaber from blue to red. It's an incredibly corny, badly written scene, and like most of that show, I'd just love to forget it ever existed. But it does give us an on-screen look at the primary way that lightsaber crystals change colour: bleeding. Because Kyber crystals naturally resist the dark side, a Sith or dark side user has to forcefully bend the crystal to their will through a process called bleeding. Now, bleeding isn't something you just trigger accidentally through a fit of angsty teenage rage, not mentioning any names, Osha. It's supposed to be a long, drawn-out, excruciating ritual that tests the absolute limits of the bleeder's power. The best breakdown of how this actually works comes from Darth Vader creating his very first Sith saber. Following Sidious's orders, Vader went to Mustafar to bleed the crystal of a fallen Jedi. Being back on a planet where he lost his limbs and his wife obviously made him furious, but unlike Osha, he couldn't just throw a tantrum and turn the blade red. Vader had to seek out a place strong with the dark side, completely dismantle the saber, and pour all of his hatred into the crystal. The crystal fought back hard. It blasted Vader into the walls of the cave that he was in with Force energy, and tormented him with visions of what his life could have been if he'd stayed on the light side. Vader had to endure those visions, channeling so much rage and regret that it literally spiked the planet's volcanic activity and kicked up global storms until he finally shattered the crystal's will. That is how you bleed a crystal, not whatever the Acolyte was trying to do. Of course, bleeding isn't a one-way street. Ahsoka Tano's iconic white lightsabers are another famous example of colour changing. A year after the fall of the Republic, during the Imperial occupation of Rada, Ahsoka defeated the Sixth Brother. She claimed 2 red Kyber crystals from his Inquisitor hilt, and using the Force, she purified them, cleansing the dark side corruption and turning the crystals a brilliant pure white. This wasn't just a one-off trick either. Canon has firmly established that any Bled crystal can be purified, forming a strong bond with the Force user who cleanses it. During the High Republic era, Jedi Master Jorah Marley unearthed an ancient Sith crystal and purified it purely as an academic exercise, only for the crystal to form such a strong connection with her that she built it into her own personal saber. Even Luke Skywalker purified a crystal when helping a former cultist named Komat to leave the Acolytes of the Beyond, turning her crimson blade white to symbolize the driving of the dark side from her mind. You can read all about that in the novel Shadows of the Sith, which alongside featuring Jedi Master Luke and Lando Calrissian, also fleshes out the backstory of Ochi of Bestoon, who is of course the absolute mad lad who carries around a dagger that somehow lines up perfectly with the wreckage of the second Death Star. Anyway, we aren't here to talk about that film that shan't be named. We're here to talk about on-the-fly colour changes. So far, we've talked about permanent transformations, long, grueling rituals that fundamentally alter the crystal. But what about Jedi who can change their lightsaber colour back and forth at will? The first famous example we have comes from Legends, the fan favourite character, Corran Horn. Now if you aren't familiar with Corran Horn, this guy is everywhere in the extended universe lore. He was the grandson of a legendary Clone Wars Jedi Master named Ninja Halcyon, although Corran grew up unaware of his Jedi heritage. He started out as a detective for the Corellian security force. He became an ace pilot in Rogue Squadron, doing ridiculous stuff like escaping the infamous Luxankia prison, before eventually training under Luke Skywalker and becoming a master in the New Jedi Order. There's a hell of a lot to talk about if we're talking Corran Horn, so if you want a full video dedicated to him, drop me a like and let me know in the comments, as there's a ton of weird stuff we can talk about with this guy. So anyway, what made Corran's lightsaber so special? Well, he built it in 11 ABY, using spare parts and scrap metal from a cantina on Corcus. Now, Kyber crystals weren't exactly just lying around in cantina trash bins, and if he looked in one of those, he might come across the script for the Acolyte Season 2. So Corran used a rare Durant Fire crystal that were commonly found on Tatooine, alongside an emerald and a diamond that he literally pried out of the furniture in his room. The resulting lightsaber took 2 days to build, but when it was completed, it was one of the most unique sabers you'll find in the lore. The result was a dual phase lightsaber. By twisting the hilt, Corran could instantly shift the internal lens alignment, extending the blade from a standard length to a massive 3 meters long. Because of the unique combination of gems, changing the length of this saber also changed the colour. At normal length, his blade shone a brilliant silver from the Durant Fire crystal, but when extended, it instantly shifted to a rich purple. I'd say that's pretty useful considering Corran literally couldn't lift a pebble with telekinesis, so having a 3 meter long purple sword was probably quite handy. Now, it might not be quite as dynamic as the sabers in the Ninth Jedi, but Corran's dual phase weapon was our first real look at a saber changing colour on the fly. Or was it? What if I told you that our first canon colour changing lightsaber happened on screen 33 years in the timeline before Corran Horn ever built his saber? Cast your mind back to the final act of Attack of the Clones. The Jedi Knights drop into the Petranaki arena on Geonosis, backed up by the newly deployed clone army. Joining the fray is none other than the Jedi Council member Ki-Adi-Mundi. Now, everyone knows Ki-Adi-Mundi wields a blue saber, but during the chaotic arena battle, you can briefly catch him swinging a bright green blade, before it cuts back to him holding his standard blue one. Is there a tactical advantage to switching colours mid-fight? No. The actual reason this piece of lore exists is because of an editing error during post-production. The VFX team accidentally coloured his blade green in a few frames, and rather than just fixing it, Lucasfilm came up with an in-lore reason explaining that Ki-Adi-Mundi carried a special hilt with multiple crystals that could just switch colours. We'd never see him use the green setting again, but hey, technically it counts. But let's go back to the Ninth Jedi. Now what makes those blades so clever isn't that they just look awesome in an action sequence, it's how Margrave Juro actually uses them as a storytelling device. The Ninth Jedi is set hundreds of years after the fall of the Order, when lightsabers have become mythical relics. Juro invites the remaining Force sensitives across the galaxy to his aerial fortress, promising to give them newly forged sabers. But Juro isn't just some eccentric collector handing out free weapons, he's secretly a surviving Jedi Master. Because lightsabers are so scarce in this era, Juro knows that any surviving Sith in the galaxy are going to come crawling out of the woodwork to get their hands on one. So he builds these blades as essentially the ultimate, uncheatable lie detector test. Standard lightsabers in Star Wars don't care who holds them. If a Sith picks up a dead Jedi's blue blade, it stays blue until they go through the effort of bleeding the crystal. But Juro's custom weapons instantly read the soul of whoever ignites them. So when these mysterious figures arrive at his temple, claim to be no more Jedi, and ignite their new weapons, the blades instantly snap to a deep blood red. They blow their own cover before they've even finished making their dramatic entrance. The Ninth Jedi takes a concept that Star Wars has spent decades patching together through obscure novels, comic books, and background movie blunders, and it uses it to genuinely drive a brilliant, tense thriller. So if we're talking about drawn-out Sith rituals, Ahsoka purifying crystals, legendary Corellian dual-phase trickery, or literally just an editing mistake on Geonosis, lightsabers changing colour on the fly isn't quite as unprecedented as it may first seem. What makes the Ninth Jedi so impressive though, is that it takes the colour-changing lightsabers and turns them from being a party trick into being a mirror of the wielder's soul, a constant living test of whether the person holding it is leaning towards the light or the dark. In a franchise that occasionally feels like it's treading old ground and rehashing ideas, I do think that's easily one of the coolest things to happen to Star Wars weapons in years. So what do you think? Are you as excited for a full season of The Ninth Jedi as I am? Let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to hit subscribe, go watch those original Vision shorts if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.